Punnies. I honestly had no idea that it was actually PunyCode until maybe a week ago when I heard somebody finally say it out loud. I am here with the man who discovered PunyCodes, which has caught a lot of traction recently. The Discord is very vibrant, and the discovery of Punies has led to a lot of other things on Namecoin. Obviously, Twitter eggs and some of the pictures already existed, but now we're seeing some on-chain generated art, IDs, early domains, and it all started here with Punies and the man Devoted. So thanks for joining us.
Yeah, happy to be here.
It's funny that we actually had to pause and push this podcast back for about 30 minutes because in the Punies Discord right before this recording, there was a new discovery of something that has to do with hex code, which is a little bit above my expertise or comprehension of primitive programming on Namecoin blockchain. So can you just describe to me what's actually happening?
Yeah, so Swooty is one of the devs in the Relics Discord, so you might be aware of that. Anyone it's a Discord that Blackstar and a few other people had created. So we had been in chat for a few days, and he was sharing with me he's scraping the entire Namecoin blockchain, and he told me since 2011 to 2022 to last 1 week, the last block, the total number of assets on the entire chain were 750,000, somewhat like that. So that's considerably low, under 1 million assets. So that's considerably low given a period of over 12 years. So he was just sharing some funny things he found on the chain. I was all right. And today he just came into our Discord and he was just shared a JSON file and he was okay, this is one of the asset I was able to find. And maybe you can share your screen and show what it was. It's in the Discord. It's a ASCII of a cat, and he was I was able to find this, and maybe there's something else as well. And he just he didn't answer much of the technical questions that people had. He was this probably won't run on Electrum, and if to anyone who doesn't know, Electrum is a wallet. This is like a light wallet. Anyone can just install it into the system and run it. But if you're gonna run other Namecoin wallet, that's Namecoin Core, then you have to get in sync with the entire chain, and that takes 2 to 3 days in itself. So basically, if you don't have Namecoin Core set up, then you're probably not gonna get anything, because it's anyone else who has already set it up, they're obviously gonna pick everything up within the next 2 to 3 days. So I'm not sure if what has been discovered, to be honest, right now, but let's see what it is. We'll figure out in some time.
I had to make a comment in the Discord and say that there's a new discovery happening right now, and 99% of the people in the Discord don't know where to dig, and they don't even know what tools to use.
Yeah, I did see that. It's even Adam was in there, and he was he was just sharing in GIF what is going on. No one has any idea.
I think the community, though, at least the Puny community, has started off on the right foot. Your discovery, and I'll pull it up here in a second. You mentioned that you didn't actually claim everything at the beginning, which we know when it came to the first people who excavated the Namecoin blockchain claimed the majority of the assets. You tended to keep a lot of them open for those who are very interested to go in and keep digging. And then you had this 15-piece Twitter post about your discovery. Can you take us through what led you first to going back to 2011 and discovering, I don't know if it's pronounced ASCII, ASCII. I've heard all different pronunciations of it, but just take us through what led you up to this Twitter post.
Yeah, so so back when the people were discovering eggs, before all the images were not scraped on the Namecoin blockchain. So I and I would say of maybe 100 people or a very small amount of people knew about Namecoin at that time, and they were just searching the blockchain, seeing what all assets are there. And some people were able to successfully find a Twitter egg, and some were able to find even a blockhead. So it's back in that time where I started really digging into Namecoin blockchain, found a lot of stock images, some nice 101s, and this was some assets, and literally because there wasn't any discovery or something, even to this day not a lot of people know about it. And to Twitter like a Namecoin blockchain, because it was just like I would say like a closed discovery, and it was like most of them were sold OTC, and nothing wrong with that. Just like the aping in, the phenomenon of aping in didn't happen over there. So the amount of people that knew about those assets are, I would say, considerably lower. And so since then, like I had been just playing around with Namecoin blockchain, and the other guy who was involved in the discovery, his name is Podl. So his name on Twitter is different. On Discord, he goes by the name of Podl. So he was the person who created the Explorer, the Namecoin Explorer. So if, for example, you have an image, let's say you have an image of a Twitter rec, and you want to see what's the supply of that. So he created the Explorer in which you can search the link of that image, and then you can see what's the supply and everything else. So so we had been in touch in multiple times. So just talking about this Namecoin or normal things, like this normal and degen stuff. And one day he was like, this normal one day I sent him like, I just found a test of XCP, test of Namecoin. It's like, it's just literally the NFT of the word test. So nothing really significant, having normal conversations regarding Namecoin assets and other things. So on the day of the discovery, I guess it was 17th of January. So he just messaged me and he was like, I found something that's really different. I don't know if it should be classified as an NFT, but it's just like different than a normal domain. I was like, all right, then let's see what you have. And then he just asked me, do you remember what a PunyCode is? And I was like, yeah, that does ring a bell. I guess it was an internet host. It was an encoding language used in internet host names. So then he showed me an example. All right, so this is an asset. If you run it into an PunyCode converter, so you'll get this. And it was an ASCII, or I don't even know how to pronounce it correctly, but it was that ASCII. So as soon as I saw that, he was just like asking questions. He was wondering like, should these be called NFTs, or like, what are these? Because it's basically within their domain. So he was just asking questions. He wasn't sure at the moment, but the moment I saw it, I was like, man, these are on-chain NFTs from 2011. Like that literally just blew my mind at the moment. So first he had sent me an ASCII. So I first started going through Namebro, the list. Basically, if anyone doesn't know, the PunyCode encoding language uses the structure of X and dash dash. So any asset that doesn't follow that structure is not a PunyCode. So you can basically, if you want to see all the assets that are following this language, you can just open namebro.se. It's a Namecoin Explorer, and search X and dash dash. All the assets that follow that structure are PunyCodes. Now there are a few things that depend on the consensus. Like, for example, we had to figure out like how till which year should the assets be included. So that was up to the community later on, but that I'll talk about later. So yeah, so first I saw these. So I started, just like you're just showing right now, I just started opening up a few of these. I was like, okay, just understanding what this is. And I by chance landed on that injection. Like, I'm sure you would have seen it in the tweet. It was injection. And that literally just blew my mind, that the level of creativity that people had in 2011 using Namecoin. So it just literally blew my mind. And then I was like, okay, so at that moment I was having a chat with Harry BTC on Twitter. So if to the people who don't know, Harry BTC was the person who helped in the discovery of Curio cards. So I knew that he's one of those people that, like, he literally just claimed, I don't know, within double digit supply or maybe even less than that. And he was like, okay, this is how everyone else can go and claim them. And I was like literally impressed by that. Like, how humble would someone be to just like take such a small percentage of the supply and just tell everyone how exactly they're supposed to use that, they're supposed to claim those assets. So as soon as that was done, I contacted Harry BTC and I was like, I think I've found something interesting. Would you mind sharing your Discord ID so that we can have a conversation with the other person? He was like, yeah, sure. So Harry BTC, me and Pudl, we got into a chat and we started, I just started explaining Harry what all this is and what this can potentially be. And the moment I explained him like how you can just convert these assets using a PunyCoder, so he knew that these are NFTs. He knew that Namecoin domains are NFTs by definition, but he was also not sure like that this is something really interesting, but we don't know how the market is going to react to it. So I was like, all right, then at first I was like, maybe we should create a web page or something like that, maybe a Medium article, because this is like installing Electrum for a person who has never done it before it's a scary thing. Like it's really hard to do, and especially running it on Mac. So I suggested Poodle that maybe we should make a web page or something like that, and maybe it'll take a few hours, maybe the entire day, and we'll go with the discovery tomorrow. And he got a bit, I would say, like I just sensed that he got a bit worried by that sentence, because he probably thought that I was screwing him over, and I was going to claim all the assets myself. So, and he told me like since the beginning that he has claimed about 2 to 3% of the supply and not more than that. I was like, all right. And as soon as this was finalized, he was like, no, let's go with the discovery right now. I was like, all right, then I started working on the tweet. So I literally within 1 hour of like understanding what a PunyCode is on the Namecoin blockchain, I started working on the tweet. So, and if anyone knows, like if you're using Electrum and you like just literally send a registration request for 8 transactions, then and those transactions have a burning triangle on them. So it literally Electrum stops you from registering more until that is cleared out. So if anyone thinks like literally have a huge percentage of the supply, so it literally wasn't like technically wasn't possible for us to attain those many assets. So I just started working on the tweet, created it all, and then I shared a screenshot of it. Like, does this look good to you to Harry BTC and Poodle? And then they approved, and then the tweet was sent out. And while I was creating the tweet, I knew that the biggest hurdle that people are going to face is buying Namecoin, because like a normal exchange doesn't have it, and to buy it you have to use CoinEx. It's one of those exchanges that have it, and by the time a person who has never bought Namecoin before, by the time they buy it and get into their Electrum wallet, the people who have been like using Electrum since the era of Twitter eggs, like they're gonna just swap everything up and nothing's gonna left, and that distribution is just gonna suck. So at that very moment, I bought a ton of Namecoin myself, and I just added into the tweet, like if you want Namecoin, that I most probably will send it to you. So and then that tweet was went out, and as soon as it was went out, like it literally just like blew up. I received, I don't know, like 100 DMs of just people asking me for a Namecoin address, and like I literally spent maybe 4 or 5 hours that day just sending people Namecoin, just sending it, getting their Namecoin IDs and just sending it to them, and helping people with how to handle the problems they were facing. For example, as I told you, as a person sends more than 8 registration requests, the Electrum just shows up an error and they have to wait out. So just answering people's questions and everything like that. So yeah, that's how we ensured that the project should get good distribution. And I even didn't knew how many assets I had. After all the discovery was done, I spent some time and looked at all the assets I have. So I have about double digit of them. So again, about 2% of the supply maybe.
That's well, first, it's admirable that you, Harry, and Doodle or Poodle, excuse me, only, you guys only acquired about 6 or 7% of the entire supply, so that you can create this like mad rush, this euphoria, very similar to what happened with Mooncats, where you had pretty much the entire space participating in this like gold rush, and then this creates this story around it, the narrative, the fair distribution, which is quite synonymous or synchronous with the primitive blockchain technologies, right? That's what Namecoin was forked off of Bitcoin. It was the first altcoin. It was worked on by Satoshi themselves, and it was called BitDNS at the time. So it was a very communal effort. So, and to keep that kind of integrity there, you have to have a fair distribution to it. But also, just want to mention the idea about NFTs. We're talking about 2011 NFTs. So Namecoin was forked in April of 2011. So Bitcoin had been around about a year and a half, a little over a year and a half at the time. And so this was all brand new technology for everyone. So much different experimentation is happening. The concept of an NFT was much different back then as it is today. As we know, for Ethereum, the ERC 721 standard wasn't adopted, I believe, until some point in 2018. So these are before all the different ERC standards, before Counterparty with rare pepes that existed. This was people like Gavin Andresen and Hal Finney and Satoshi all experimenting on here. And we don't know specifically who may have registered all of these to begin with, but every individual domain or registration is an NFT because if you take down non-fungible to the most basic outline, a non-fungible token is just a unique token that is pretty much packed with some sort of unique information. And that's where we see these PunyCodes translated over here to see. And I know the distribution of these is quite small. So about 3,255 different punnies from these different years. As we see, 2011 has about 85, and then it works its way upwards to 2015. I don't know what happened in 2015, but it seems like the herd kind of figured it out and slightly tailed off. And then we see the the ASCII art, emojis. I have a cat emoji, which thank you, Poodle, for helping me out. The text and the symbols. But we have seen 10 ETH sales for 2011. It seems like 2015 kind of hovers around 1.5, but there's like a massive supply crunch because I think most people are still trying to figure out, do we want to lock it in Emblem Vault and sell it? Do we just want to hold on to it? All of the bugs that kind of happen with, as you mentioned, Electrum and Namecoin Core, very, very primitive technology. But I do admire you guys for bringing this to light and being very fair about it. Let's talk a little bit about the punnies. As I pulled up the sheets that the team put together, you have the percentages, the categories, and I mentioned there's a few different variations. There's emojis, there's the like the on-chain art, we have some symbols and some text. What are your thoughts about the experimentation? As somebody who was first on here, have you formed maybe a thesis on maybe why PunyCode was used to create these images?
Yeah, so like I was just like brainstorming this myself. So let's say, for example, let's say we were people working in the crypto space since, let's say, 2009, and we are just like working on Bitcoin, and you literally just couldn't get creative with the way like Bitcoin was designed at that time. So like, have you heard of Stephen Vogler, the artist who created a few artworks in 2015?
No, I'm not familiar with them.
Okay, so like recently a discovery was made. So Stephen Vogler's art, so he created, and I'm not exactly sure how it was like how it was all done. I know a bit of summary of it, but he actually created some artwork in 2015. It was tokenized into the Bitcoin transactions under the OP underscore return function of a Bitcoin transaction. And so basically how it was executed was, so you can take the hash of a file and you can embed it into the OP return function of a Bitcoin transaction, and then you basically host that file on chain. So basically, and that function was introduced in 2014. So if, let's say, this is the year 2011 and maybe 2010 or any time around that, and you, let's say, a normal person, let's say just one of the pioneers of the space who were working in the crypto space at that time, and if you have an artistic side in yourself, like we people love to draw on books, like most of people have a small artistic side in themselves. So if you had an artistic side in yourself in 2011 or maybe 2010, there was literally no way to express that in the work that you were doing. So like there was no return function, you couldn't embed a hash of an image, and the earliest instances of this can be seen since the Genesis block. So like if I'm not sure if you've seen the hex of a Genesis block, there's a like line written by Satoshi. Mm-hmm. I don't exactly remember what the wording was, but it was something like that. Jan 2009, and then
Chancellor's on the brink of the bailouts.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So like since the creativity within the crypto space can be seen since that time, since the initiation of Bitcoin itself. And then there's like two artworks that were embedded onto the Bitcoin blockchain, and it was like, so there was no way to make it tradable. So just like the Genesis block isn't tradable, in the same way this is called the Bernanke. So have you ever seen the artworks called Bernanke?
Mm-mm.
So like in 2011, I'll just, if you'll Google up Medium space Bernanke, maybe it'll come up. It's a
Media.
Medium article. Yes,
How do you
please.
spell it?
BER
BER.
NAN NAN
MAN.
NAN
Oh, NAN.
KE.
KE.
Maybe it comes up. I'm not 100% sure. Yeah, this.
First one.
Yeah, click on the third one. Or no, it's the Lehman Brothers. I'm not 100% sure. So basically, like there's an artwork. So Ben Bernanke, he was one of the, I guess, the presidents of the Federal Reserve at the time. So it's an artwork of him and one of the early Bitcoin developers. His name was Len Sissaman. So literally the key, I'm not sure exactly how it was done, but maybe the keys of a Bitcoin fake wallets were created. So basically multiple transactions were sent to fake wallets, and each wallet, the address of the wallet was like designed in a way that when those addresses were clubbed together, let's say 10 addresses were clubbed together, it made an artwork. So it was one of the earliest instances of artwork onto the blockchain. So that was July 2011. So the PunyCodes even predate that. So we can see like people to the level that people were going to express their creativity within the crypto space. So, and as soon as Namecoin came out, so within like the first asset on the Namecoin blockchain, as per current information, is D/Bitcoin. It's on the 21st of April 2011. And since like and the first PunyCode is 10th May 2011. So within like 20 days of like the first assets being brought up on the chain, like people were expressing their creativity. So of course, those people had been working on the crypto space for years, and they just found a way to express their creativity onto the blockchain, and they just created these PunyCodes as they are today. So that, like, I did brainstorm all this, and like literally fascinating. Like within 20 days of like the first asset be coming out, people were expressing their creativity onto the blockchain. So it's just mind blowing.
Right. And now I've moved over here to Emblem Vault. You could see some of the images that have been vaulted on here. And for those that are watching, these are all Namecoin assets. So you'll see Twitter eggs. There's some default dudes. As we see here, some of the different domains. It's all a lot of different experimentation for the stuff that is happening out here. You mentioned that D/Bitcoin is the first NFT, or at least the first tradable NFT that exists. Do you think acquiring vintage domains will have a similar, we'll say, collector's novelty comparable to some of these PunyCodes, or do you think everything on here is a little bit more speculative, as we see right here, like D/Mitchell, which was minted in 2011. Do you think these will have value long term as well, just like as long as PunyCodes and everything else succeeds?
Well, like, of course, like it's just a one person's opinion, so it doesn't like value to anything. But I believe like if like the supply of all the assets minted in 2011 is about 12,500. So that's pretty small in itself. So I believe like if any collector just listens to the word 2011 NFTs, so maybe just a bell rings in their head. So it is like amazing that it was 2011 NFTs are there. So yeah, like of course, like PunyCodes, at 2011 PunyCodes, they're about 85 supply, and they are like, they easily be considered as artistic representations since 2011, NFTs that represent art in some way or another. Maybe it's an emoji, maybe it's an ASCII art or something like that. But the clearly artistic representation can be seen there. However, these assets, like these are technically NFTs. So yeah, 12,500 supply isn't that huge. So I believe, yes, in long term they can have value, but like, yeah, like who knows?
And so how do we bring, outside of simple conversations like this, how do you think, or at least the team behind the PunyCode Discord is bringing this kind of idea, this massive uncovering, first NFTs that have ever existed? How are you planning to introduce more attention to this like emerging economy?
Yeah, so like the moment like we saw like the moment the tweet was sent out and the level of engagement it created, the amount of people that were asking us about NMG domains, that very moment I knew, like, first of all, the biggest hurdle that people are going to face is like running Electrum on Mac. So it's really hard. And let's say 50% of the people who are on the crypto Twitter space, like maybe they use Mac, maybe rest 50% use Linux, and or maybe 50% of them use Mac and the other use in Windows system or Linux OS. So like, first of all, the people who use Mac, they're gonna have a problem. They're gonna have a problem in running Electrum. So the distribution starts, let's say, a bit depreciating from the start. So as soon as like all the tweet was made out and I was working on the Discord myself, I knew that to ensure like there is no single party here. Like we are not huge whales. We own double digits of the supply, and in order to ensure that the PunyCode is a project that becomes something that's literally just one of the huge asset classes in the entire crypto space, we wanted to ensure that the distribution gets better and the entire community can gather up funds together so that they can be implemented for example, marketing or maybe buying assets in a billboard project, for example. Like there are many billboard projects. Like for example, there's one from, I guess the name is 1000 Ether page. I'm not exactly sure, from 2017. So like we can put up advertisements of the project over there. So I came up with the idea of the PunyCode DAO. So the basic ideology is to that if like it was just created for in the beginning for anyone who was able to buy bunnies. So literally, like we showed you, like I literally wrote down in the tweet, I sent everyone Namecoin. So people basically just had to do nothing other than give their time into it, and they could acquire some pretty nice assets from 2011 to 17. So the idea was like, if you have acquired, let's say, an X amount of supply of the PunyCodes that you have like just found. So if you're willing to contribute at least one of those, then you're going to become a member of the DAO. And that asset is going to be used into the marketing of the project. And that's how like that was the basic idea. And you're going to get multiple benefits. Like as you have opened up the page there, all the benefits are written up over here. So in this way, like people have literally attained these assets for almost free. They can contribute one of their supply, and the entire PunyCode project grows. And this is like, this can create a pretty good network effect, and it's going to create a pretty nice community around it. So like that was the idea from the beginning. And now the treasury itself holds, I would say, double digit ETH of value in PunyCodes, given that the floor is now approximately 1.5 ETH or something like that. And the 2012 assets have a floor of 7 ETH, 7 or somewhat around that. And there have been some sales for 2012 assets in which the trade was for one test and one, I think, 100 supply rare Pepe. So that makes the total value of that trade close to 10 ETH, I would say. So yeah, like that's how we had planned it. Now we're, for example, today itself, I was going to create a Genosis safe, and we were going to move the assets over there and then start doing multiple things to market the project. So like this is literally like one of the first projects ever created in the crypto space. So all you have to do is like just spread the word out, and just the people need to be aware of it. Like there's nothing else need to be done. So that is our focus. Like we have a roadmap that we had created together, and the community, like what the community has achieved within the 10 days of the discovery is just mind blowing. Like you're part of it yourself. You would have seen how good the community is. Like what all the conversations are going on. Everyone, like we literally have a front end dev, a back end dev, 2 meme artists, 1 designer, and 2 or 3 more people that are moderators. And Gallen, you maybe have a few conversations with him. Maybe he's also as an egg. So he contributed a lot into creating a bot for the every sale that the PunyCode project has. So like the community has done a lot, and there's just people have come up together to just participate in the growth of the project. And for example, the 2011 NFT PunyCodes, like initially the sale that I had seen was for at as low as 2 ETH. And currently, like if you would go up to the OTC channel, a friend of mine, he's just put up an open offer for a ninja suit and a few more Sarutobi assets for 2011 mint asset, 2011 PunyCode. And it is been like 3-4 days, like the trade hasn't been executed. And the value of that trade would be upwards of 30 ETH at minimum. So like people do believe that the value of a 2011 PunyCode like would be upwards of 30. So, and
Yeah.
literally, I was expecting a lot of paper handling because people have literally acquired these for free. So obviously, why would someone not sell them? But no one is just like putting them up. Like the number of the real legit PunyCodes that are on OpenSea, like I would say under 100. So like that literally just blew my mind itself.
Yeah. So there's a few different points for this conversation. First, I want to mention within the older NFTs, mentioning Counterparty and here on Namecoin, a lot of the trades that exist are actually OTC, as there's no specific exchange for Namecoin assets, and then for Counterparty, it's kind of spread between a handful of different exchanges. It's not like there's an OpenSea to go to where you can just kind of see and track all of the analytics. So a lot of the value that's created or the pricing that's listed, it kind of comes from like it's kind of like a convergence of the community's view on how historic these are. And with these in the historical NFT space, you generally don't see as much paper handing because a lot of these people understand how legendary some of these are, how old they are, and also how hard and tough it is to acquire some of these. As you mentioned before, you have to have at least a pretty fair and complex understanding of blockchain programming to even go and excavate some of these, and then to even transition between all of the different wallets. The time it takes to acquire these is much harder than just simply going and pressing mint at 0.08 ETH for 8 of them and then flipping them right afterwards.
Yeah, I completely agree. And like literally what happens is like if you would have ever registered, I'm sure you would have registered an ENS domain. So there are 2 transactions that get sent, like the gas is charged twice. So same happens with on Namecoin. So if you like first is a registration, first is a pre-registration request and then it's a registration request. So what happens is like if let's say I raised the pre-registration request first and someone raised it like 2 minutes after me. So the asset is gonna be displayed as expired to him and me, both of us. But as my registration request was first, so later on my registration is going to get there first and I'm going to get the asset, he's not going to get the asset. So basically that's how it's like, as you said, primitive technology. So it's not as like people can get front run basically easily in here. So there are people who thought they had 30 or 40 PunyCodes, and the next day out they just found out they're all just pending transactions and they couldn't get any. So yeah, it's like literally as hard as it can get into getting these assets.
Yeah, no kidding. And there's a lot of nuances within Namecoin itself. When it comes to PunyCodes, they're all on chain. That's pretty simple. Domains are pretty simple. But once you start moving into like some of the image renderings with eggs and identicons and blockheads and all of these, we've seen a few different ways that people can kind of find the loopholes in the system between storage or storing them within an emblem vault and selling them, or what constitutes an actual image, like where it's stored, because IPFS wasn't created until 2015. So the image storage solutions were much different than what you see nowadays. We find ourselves in these communities in a lot of semantic battles of what actually constitutes NFTs and what doesn't. But tell me if you agree with this. As talking, I think this was in the Puny Discord the other day, that when we were discussing like what gives different NFTs value, with Namecoin, most of the value comes from the registry itself rather than the images. Maybe you agree, or maybe you have your own viewpoints on where the value is actually derived from Namecoin assets.
Yeah, like if you like, for example, like XCP assets aren't perfect. All right. Neither are NMC assets. So like they cannot be compared to like an ERC-721 on ETH. But like these are the assets that built the space into an ERC-721. If there was like no experimentation on XCP, no colored coins, no Namecoin assets, like if there was no experimentation, that literally it's impossible to just jump straight to, let's say, an ERC-721 standard. So like these assets are the space that built everything that we do know today. everything, as you want to call them, Bored Ape Yacht Club. And I love Bayak as well. I just love every project that's working hard towards the growth of their community. But like these are the assets on Namecoin, on XCP, the early ETH assets, and like these are the assets that built this space into what it is today. So like just trying to fud them, or maybe just saying that eggs are just the image face stored on an AWS server or something like that. That like there was no option at that time. So if for example, it's we take PunyCodes, like if this was 2011 and this Namecoin came out, like a lot of people say that Namecoin assets expire, so that cannot be called like NFTs or something like that. So like they need to understand there was no other way. Like what was someone gonna do? They were gonna hire 100 developers and create their own chain, or were they gonna use the assets that they have, like the tools they have at their deployment, and then create the NFTs? So or they weren't even obviously called NFTs, just experimentations. So these are the assets that build the space that we are all living it today. So they deserve the respect, and the value is derived from that very fact. So the earliest XCP, like I love Test, the first XCP asset, and I don't hold any, but I would love to one day. I think the party has also ended, or maybe it is still scheduled. The one was going on in Los Angeles for every test holder. So yeah, so like these are the early situations, and they need to get the respect that like people don't give them the respect they deserve. And like these are the, like I would say, like as people would like call them, up only in the long term. So investments that most probably won't go down in the long term period. So yeah, like I just love every historical asset for XCP assets, Umbrella, Test, like just all these are the assets that build the space that is today. So they deserve the respect that no, some people give them, some don't. So I do believe like they deserve the respect.
Yeah, I give you guys props too, because this community was spun up much faster than any community I'd ever seen before. At least in the historical space. Mooncats had a similar one, and there had been a few others, but it's a very active and engaging community. So you guys should be very proud of yourselves for what you guys have done. It's truly, truly an incredible feat. But now it leads me to the question of like, what's next? There's a bunch of trading. The value is being created over time. Yes, price history is a way to attribute value to something where somebody just lists and makes money. But now we get into the interesting component of historical projects where it takes a little bit longer for them to reach breakaway speed, as we see with some of the newer projects. At least from this standpoint, comparative to other historical projects, the owner distribution is fairly unique and isn't much hoarding, so you don't have to worry about vintage or OG holders coming in and just basically dumping into all of the hype cycles, which happens with a lot of other historical projects. Do you just keep using it? Do you focus on, is the Punny Discord only there to focus on PunyCodes, or are you going to take a broader approach to Namecoin, education, and some of the other maybe hidden treasures that exist in the chain?
Yeah, so if you would have seen the last tweet in the thread that I had posted, so I had written in there like NMC is a chain of surprises. Who knows what else is there? So I literally like, yes, PunyCodes is one of the first projects, but maybe there are like other encoding languages as well. Like today, as we had seen, like Sooty had share in the PunyCodes Discord. So like, who knows what else is there? And I personally have seen assets in which there are 2012 mint assets in which in our Namecoin domain, there's a function. It's called a name update. So in that, people had literally written poems. So like that's like literally artistic in itself. So we were having a conversation like obviously like it's about educating other people about what the Namecoin domains are, how to ensure your doesn't get expired and taken away from you, how to get this into emblem vault, throw somewhere like $50 worth of Namecoin into it and forget about it for maybe a few decades, and of course all those things. And we like, as soon as when the discovery was made, before sending out the tweet, I just sent a message to Harry BTC, and I was like, just grab a few assets before the entire community starts getting them. And he was the guy is literally humble, or he just didn't care that much. He was like, okay, I registered a few, and he just literally didn't give a like, just he just literally didn't care about it. And later on, he had to buy one of Poodle because he didn't have a really nice one at the moment. So like, so that's just some remarkable in itself. So yes, so the obviously like educating people about Namecoin, how they can run Electrum and all those other things. And like other day we were having a conversation, like there's a guy in the Discord, his name is Ray. He was like, you guys have unleashed a monster. So like literally every domain in the Namecoin chain is just getting swapped up. People are finding narratives. Like other day people were talking about, so there's an type of assets on the Namecoin blockchain. They're called identities, ID slash let's say ID slash Jake. So like I guess that's what you have, correct? No, you have Jake dot bit.
I have Jake.bit, yeah.
Yeah, okay. So ID is a different type of it's called name identities on the Namecoin blockchain. So at that time, they were used to, like, there was a P2P messaging platform. It was called Bit Messages. So like people were talking about the total supply of the name identities on the Namecoin blockchain was about 10,000 or something like that. So it's not exactly, we should say, discovery, because anyone who had been using Electrum knew about them. But yes, a good narrative can be built around that. Like these are the earliest experiments in communications, or kind of level, someone can say, social media on chain. So like, so people are just coming up with narratives, finding what all is there on the Namecoin blockchain. And yeah, I do believe, like, personally, we as like, of course, like the PunyCodes project has gotten a lot of eyes into it. And if there is any way like we can help, like, provide growth towards any other project, we would love to. So we have like we were having a lot of conversations. So people were talking about, like, would they be willing to collaborate, like combine another project, let's say a different kind of encoding language with the PunyCodes project. And my response to that was like, that would be saying like combining Ethereum with Pixel Map, just because they're both on the ETH chain. So yes, they are all assets on the Namecoin chain, but obviously a different community and different narrative needs to be built around that. But like obviously we'd be willing to help any way we can.
Yeah, truly incredible. Just for those who are listening, so if you take the D/ or Jake.bit, that would be equivalent of a decentralized domain. So just like you see with ENS, the .eth, so you can have that linked to, if I own Jake.com, I could put Jake.bit and it would all be linked together. ID, from what I've been told, is the equivalent of like signing in. So like if you sign in with Facebook or sign in with Google, I think it was 2013 is when IDs started coming around, or 2012. That was the first idea of like being able to sign into different web pages with a decentralized ID. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's correct. Yeah.
Okay.
And bit messages can be called a DApp on it. So like a communications tool.
So now we've gone all the way back as far as we can, digging up old history. We're on this Namecoin, which has like some sort of merged mining with Bitcoin. Is there any fear or concern that the chain could fail at any point in time, given the potential amount of oncoming demand that might find its way into the chain? Has there been any discussions about this between the people who are some of the early pioneers?
Yeah, like we were talking about like how we should contribute towards, like, one thing, like I was personally thinking myself that maybe in a while, when the PunyCodes project gets properly valued, in my personal subjective opinion, we're going to just, for my personal like collection, I'm going to just auction off an asset and then provide it into the people who send that to the people who are running the nodes and everything of the Namecoin blockchain. And I believe the assets, for example, the X community, the Blockheads community, the value of those assets is considerably high at this very moment itself. So if there is a problem, like let's say the Namecoin chain is failing or something like that is happening, I don't believe it's going to be hard for a few people to just set up a few nodes or just pay for the nodes and get the chain running. So it's not going to be that hard to manage. So yes, that topic did come up, and I personally had just on the Namecoin website, namecoin.org, there's a contribution space key. How would someone like to contribute? And there's a way you can buy a Namecoin tea that was for, I don't know, like $35. So I bought two, and I was like, okay, that's a small way of contributing towards the chain. So yeah, I believe like as the community gets stronger and stronger and more people chime in, so it will be Yeah, relatively easy, because if, let's say, if there's a problem in the chain and maybe let's say 10 ETH can be distributed into it, I don't think the DAO members are going to have a problem with selling off a 2012 asset and contributing those 10 ETH onto the Namecoin blockchain. So I don't, yes, that can be a potential issue, but it can easily be managed out with the communities that are on the Namecoin blockchain.
Has anybody reached out to the PunyCode team that was maybe an early registrant? Personally, as I went and did my own historical digging and inquired Jake.bit, I saw in a lot of these registry updates emails saying, "Hey, email this person. You can these domains are for sale." Although some of those registry updates were from literally years ago. Have you been able to contact any of the early adopters of Namecoin, or have they reached out to the team?
Yeah, so like there's a guy by the name of Medium Archibald. So he helped in the discovery of the test of XCP, the first asset on test. So like I was having a conversation with him, and he was like, "I am a part-time investigative reporter," and he like found out the person who had created test, and the person didn't know that he had the first XCP asset in their wallet, and he helped into the discovery of that asset that way. So in the same way, like I personally didn't get the time because I've been like too busy in the community, creating the roadmaps and getting the project listed at as many places as possible, growing the community, and just focusing. I'm just tunnel vision onto that. That's the primary goal for me and the admins, I would say, and the moderators in the community of the PunyCode project. But like he was just playing around, and he did find a person who had on the Namecoin Talk forum. He had found a person who had created the first few assets of the Namecoin blockchain, and like I'm not sure how much in depth I should go here, because he might not be comfortable. But he did say like he has gotten in touch with the person who had created like the first few assets within the first few hundred blocks. So he did say he was in talks with the person, and if he or she does come up, we would love to just bring them up, have a conversation. The history that they're going to be able to share is going to be invaluable in itself. So yeah, as time passes, I'm sure people more and more, the OG people since the Namecoin blockchain 2000 since 2011, they're gonna do hear about this and do come up. And unlike XCP, sadly, the assets that they had in their wallet are most probably would have expired by now. But we would love to just have them here and just hear what all they have to say, since they like what all they were doing, what the thought was before creating, let's say, a PunyCode or using an encoding language onto the blockchain. So like those stories are going to be invaluable in themselves.
Yes, within the newer NFT projects, it's all about branding and marketing, and that's kind of where the value is derived. Whereas the historical projects, values derived from the stories and the legends that are created, the history, understanding the time and what existed back then. So some of these early adopters or early users of early blockchains or NFTs, it's definitely encouraged for them to come forward and to share their story, because it fills in a lot of those holes and a lot of those gaps on the timeline that none of us would be able to figure out. I mean, we could figure out some of it based off of what's on the blockchain, but to understand the reasoning and the mentality and the culture that existed, those people are very key and monumental, and they're generally rewarded pretty handsomely too.
Yeah, absolutely. Like as like a person individual who holds a few PunyCodes and the DAO, like I'm sure like I personally would love to send them an asset that would be valuable in some shape or form. And so I'm sure like the people who are in the DAO, if someone personally did, maybe they will be willing or not, I can't say something for someone else, but as collectively in the DAO, we'd be more than happy to like maybe, let's say, reward them, or maybe just send them a small appreciation gift or something like that. Like we would just love to, because those are the people that had built the entire project. If they weren't here, like nothing would have been.
Yeah, 100%. So in terms of going back to the DAO, are you only accepting contributions of PunyCodes, or is the DAO looking into accepting maybe vintage domains and ideas or some sort of composite?
Yeah, so like basically our idea was like, if you're willing to contribute towards the growth and awareness of the PunyCodes project, then we'd love to have you in. So there was a person who said that I'm willing to create a website in which if a person, like for example, emblem walls need to be created for the assets need to be traded. So he was willing to create a website. His name is I'm not exactly sure, but crypto Korean, something like that. I'm sorry if I'm pronouncing it wrong. So he was like, I'm willing to contribute my time to create a website in which a person just have to put the name of their asset, and they get an auto-generated image, an auto-generated description, and auto-generated title. And he was like, I can contribute this. Would the DAO be happy to accept me in? And we were like, yes, absolutely. So anyone who has been willing to contribute into the awareness and into basically the growth of the project, like they have been a part of the DAO. And when it comes to like just entering the DAO via providing some kind of monetary contribution, so the consensus was to accept anyone if they are willing to provide any asset that equates to the PunyCode's floor. So if the floor of a PunyCode is let's say 1.5 ETH and they're willing to provide a asset that equates to that amount, then we'd be happy to have them in. So basically, if they can contribute to what the needs of the project is, or maybe they can provide some monetary value that can be helpful to the entire DAO, so then we'd be happy to have them in. That's the basic consensus.
Awesome. Yeah, I'm hoping that I can contribute to that some point with some of the domains that I've managed to uncover as well. It's really cool though to see that now a lot of these historical projects across multiple chains are creating DAOs, and that we're all understanding that yes, we do share a majority of the same community across all three chains and the histories of pre-17 and before. But understanding the needs of every historical project varies differently, where some need more development on certain sides, some need more content creators to help come in. It's very unique the way that they've been assembled, and kind of the mimetic desires that each DAO or community is required of. It's very interesting.
Yeah, absolutely. Like a group of people, like they obviously could have, like people could have just easily sold the assets and just not cared at all. But like the amount of time people are willing to put into the projects, the passion they have, like this is like the community has like really a lively place. And obviously there isn't a single party who owns a lot of assets that they can use into the growth of the project. So a DAO is a must. Otherwise, if there is no single party, like if people collectively don't come together, like the growth is gonna get like pretty like scaled down, I would say. So yeah, like, it's up to the community. Like people just come up together, like they're willing to contribute, having conversations. Like within 10 minutes of creation of the Discord, like people are literally sharing memes on there. So it's been a pretty lively place to be in.
It is it's so wild. We've gone all the way back to Namecoin. I mean, unless you could find something on Bitcoin from before 2011, but then it's not tokenized. I don't even know what to expect at this point. It seems like there's something new that's being uncovered every day, but it's why it's beautiful, and that we get to wake up and share this crazy story, because who knows, maybe 6 months, a year from now, everything's figured out, and then it eventually just becomes tokenized, commercialized, and maybe we could get our own historical NFT section on Coinbase NFT, and then the floodgates are really opened and the community is exponentially grows pretty fast, and so then we'll never be able to keep up with it. But I just wanted to say, Devoted, thank you for your discovery and the very charitable vision that you've instilled within the community. It's very, like I said, it's very admirable, but I don't think this kind of excavation would exist without leaders who were very generous with their uncoverings and the allocation that's been put towards it.
Yeah, thanks a lot for the kind words. Like they literally mean a lot. And like just a few days ago, so someone just had put up a message. So basically, people were analyzing what all assets are there since 2011 and 12. So there are like about 10 Greek characters in the 2011 list. So like people just put them, just uploaded a image of like these are all the 10 assets. So someone was asking who has them, and I literally didn't own any of those myself. So yeah, so I do own a few like alphabets, but like those literally look really cool, and I was like, man, I don't own any of those myself. So and yeah, so and another day a person was like he they just had put up a comment. I had also retweeted that on my Twitter profile, and they were like, this has to be one of the most fair discoveries or distributions anyone has ever seen. And he was like, these guys could have easily taken up to 2011 and 2012 and then just let the community buy the 2013, 15, and let's say other years. But they literally just took a small percentage of the supply, and there's a equal supply. Like I own like some from 2011, like single digits from 2011, a few in double digits of 2012. So I'm not hurting the supply in any shape or form. So that literally, like being completely transparent, is the reason why the community is what it is today. And I truly believe that it was, if that hadn't been the case, like just no one would have cared. Like yeah, a few people found a few assets and they just hoarded them. So the community wouldn't have been this vibrant in any shape or form if we had been unfair in any shape, anyway, in any way.
Yeah, absolutely. And we've seen the hoarding of certain supplies and some of the rediscoveries across all three different chains, and some of the other ones completely backfire in some of those phases. So excited for what is going to unfold, and that I could be a part of the community and continue digging. So Devoted, thanks again. And I'll see you out there in the Twitter sphere.
Thank you, sir. And we would love to have you in.
Absolutely. Thank you guys for listening and watching. We'll catch you next time.